this video, I'm going to be talking about how we can know the New Testament documents are reliable. So hey, without further ado, let's go, let's get it. So this is part 4 of a 4-part video series I've been doing on 4 questions that we have to answer in order to show that Christianity is true. So in my first video, I talked about, does truth exist? That was the first question. The second question is, does God exist? The third question is, are miracles possible? And the last question, which I'm going to be talking about in this video, is, are the New Testament documents reliable? So in order to answer this question, we have to kind of answer 2 sub-questions in order to show that the New Testament documents are reliable. First question is, do we have accurate copies? And the second question is, do those accurate copies tell the truth? If those 2 questions are true, then we can actually show that New Testament documents are reliable. So one thing to note about the New Testament documents is they weren't written or transmitted like the game of telephone, where one person saw the events, told it to another person who passed it down to another person. That's not how the New Testament documents was written. Instead, what happened was many different people observed the events of the New Testament documents, and 9 of those people who witnessed those events actually wrote them down into what we now know as the New Testament. All these New Testament documents were all written before 100 AD. And the reason why that's important is because, well, if Jesus died around 30 to 33 AD, then the fact that these were written within a 70-year period after his death and resurrection, well, that just goes to show that these writings in the New Testament document, they weren't passed down from one generation to the next. Like, it wasn't 3,000 years later where we come up with the story of Jesus. No, that happened within a 70-year window of his death and resurrection. We have all these New Testament documents, and that just goes to show that, well, these weren't all passed down like the game of telephone. Now, we actually don't have the original New Testament manuscripts, but just because we don't have the original, well, that doesn't mean we can't reconstruct the original from the copies that we found. And to put that into perspective a little bit, we have more New Testament documents that have been found than the best 10 pieces of classical literature combined. That's a lot of manuscripts. So do we have accurate copies? I would say yes, just because of how many we found and the fact that these were all written so close to the time of Jesus. Within 70 years after his death and resurrection, all these documents were written, and these weren't passed down like the game of telephone. No, instead these were all witnessed by individual people who recorded what they found. Now, just because we have a lot of actual copies of the New Testament manuscripts, that doesn't necessarily mean that these documents told the truth. So we also need to talk about the question, do these documents tell the truth? A guy named Colin Hemer found 84 facts in the last 16 chapters of the book of Acts that have been verified through historical and archaeological evidence. Some of these things include things like the place Philippi being described as a Roman colony, or Ananias being a high priest, or Felix being the Roman governor. I'll list some of these facts and maybe a link to all these 84 facts that Colin Hemer found. Now, outside of the New Testament, we actually have a lot of non-Jewish historians who wrote and support the events recorded in the New Testament. People such as Josephus actually wrote on things such as the crucifixion of Jesus and affirm a lot of what the New Testament says. So do we have accurate copies? Yes. And do these accurate copies tell the truth? I believe so, just from these. I mean, there's many more facts. We could go on and on, but I'll list some links in the description below on some resources for you to check out for yourself. So I just scratched the surface on these 4 questions. Does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? And are the New Testament documents reliable? If you want to go into more detail on these questions and many others, I've got a couple of books that I would recommend, one of which is I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Frank Turek. Awesome book. Forensic Faith, J. Warner Wallace, The Case for God, Lee Strobel, Stealing from God, Frank Turek, many, many others. So I just want to encourage you to seek, know, and live truth in all that you do. But hey, in this series, we showed that truth exists, God exists, miracles are possible, and the New Testament documents are reliable. So therefore, hey, Christianity is true. If you enjoyed this video, if you made it to the end, hit that thumbs up button. Comment down below what you enjoyed. Share this video with a friend so that they can learn something and enjoy it as well. Hey, until next time, seek, know, and live truth in all that you do. Grace, peace.